The field stretched endlessly under a canopy of stars, a quiet expanse of golden grass, interrupted only by the occasional chirp of crickets. Elliot had no particular reason to be there. Stargazing was one of those hobbies he called productive procrastination. Armed with a beat-up telescope, a thermos of lukewarm coffee, and a flashlight that flickered more than it illuminated, he trudged through the knee-high grass, muttering to himself, "Just you, the stars, and absolutely no sign of Wi-Fi. Paradise, Elliot. Truly." He chuckled dryly, shaking the flashlight in vain. It was at that precise moment he saw her, or rather something he couldn't quite classify. She was standing about 30 feet away, illuminated by the faint blue glow of a device strapped to her wrist. At first, Elliot thought she might be some sort of hologram. Her silhouette shimmered as if made of static. But when she stumbled forward, clutching her stomach and muttering in a language that sounded like a dial-up modem having a meltdown, he realized she was very real. Hi?" Elliot said, taking a cautious step closer. "Are you, okay? Not that you look okay, exactly. No offense." The woman, if she was a woman, snapped her head toward him. Her eyes were an unsettling shade of silver, catching and refracting the moonlight like mirrors. She spoke again, and this time, her wrist device crackled to life, spitting out a heavily accented translation. "Greetings. Bipedal local. Query. Sustenance." Elliot blinked. "You're asking me for food?" She nodded weakly, then added, "I have not consumed nutritional matter in days. Situation, suboptimal." "Well, you're in luck," Elliot said, trying to mask his growing unease with humor. "I brought some granola bars. They're technically food. Barely." As he fumbled through his backpack, she stepped closer, her shimmering form solidifying slightly. Her features became clearer. High cheekbones, a cascade of hair that seemed to ripple between colors, and a faintly luminescent tattoo winding around her neck like a constellation. She looked alien, yes, but also strangely human. Elliot handed her a granola bar. She studied it like it was a weapon. You just peel the wrapper and eat it," he said, miming the action. She hesitated, then took a cautious bite. Immediately, her face contorted in horror. She spat out the piece, the granola scattering like confetti. "Taste, abhorrent. Texture, abomination," her device declared. "Okay, wow, you didn't have to roast my snack choices," Elliot replied, his voice tinged with mock offense. "I worked really hard opening that wrapper, you know." The woman, alien, visitor, hallucination, sank to her knees, her glow dimming slightly. Elliot's instinct to make another joke faltered. "Hey, what do you eat anyway?" he asked, crouching beside her. She looked at him, and for the first time, her expression softened. "Query. Unknown." Elliot stared at her. "Wait. You don't know what you can eat?" "Affirmative," the device confirmed. "Situation dire. System failure imminent without suitable sustenance." Elliot sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Great. I find a glowing alien lady, and she's on the verge of starving to death. What am I supposed to do? Order takeout?" "Hi, yeah. Do you have anything that works for extraterrestrial dietary restrictions?" To his surprise, she tilted her head, as if considering his words. Then she said something in her own language, and the wrist device translated, "Define takeout." "Not important," Elliot said quickly. He glanced around the field, his mind racing. "Okay, maybe you can tell me what you normally eat, like back home. Is it meat, vegetables, I don't know, cosmic stardust?" Her eyes narrowed, and the device spat out a rapid stream of alien syllables before finally landing on a translation. "Environment of origin, incompatible comparison. Your planet's materials are novel." "Novel," Elliot repeated. "Cool. So you're basically on an intergalactic version of Worst Cooks in America, except you're the contestant, and the prize is not starving to death." Her gaze didn't waver, but her faintly glowing lips quirked upward. It was subtle, but it was definitely a smile. Humor. Appreciated, the device said. Well, at least we're making progress, Elliot muttered. He sat down beside her, the grass cool against his jeans. Okay, here's the plan. We'll figure this out. Somehow. But first, let's get you out of this field before a farmer sees you and freaks out. You don't exactly blend in. Her silver eyes scanned the horizon, and she gave a reluctant nod. Rising unsteadily, she held out a hand. Elliot hesitated, then took it, surprised at how warm it was. As they walked toward his car, the absurdity of the situation hit him like a freight train. He glanced sideways at his glowing companion and laughed under his breath. This is either the best night of my life or the beginning of the weirdest lawsuit ever, he said. Define lawsuit, the device chimed in, perfectly deadpan. Elliot groaned. Oh, we've got a lot to talk about. Above them, the stars twinkled as if watching. Neither of them noticed the faint, rhythmic pulsing of lights in the sky, too distant to register, but steadily drawing closer. Elliot's small apartment was not prepared for alien guests. It wasn't even prepared for Elliot. The living room was a patchwork of clutter, mismatched furniture, books stacked in teetering towers, and a dying fern he optimistically referred to as Freddy. Amidst this chaos, Kanara sat cross-legged on the couch, her shimmering form flickering faintly, as if reacting to the dim overhead light. Elliot rummaged through his kitchen cabinets, muttering under his breath, Okay, what's on the menu tonight? Let's see. Ramen? Too salty. Popcorn? Too weird. Oh, SpaghettiOs. No, wait, those are from like 2017. Never mind. Observation. Your nourishment storage is minimal, Kanara's wrist device commented, its tone somehow managing to sound judgy. Hey, I'm not exactly running a 5-star restaurant here, Elliot shot back. He grabbed a jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread. All right, let's start simple. Ever had a sandwich? Kanara watched with a mix of curiosity and skepticism as Elliot slapped together a peanut butter sandwich. He handed it to her with an encouraging smile. Try it. Trust me, it's a classic. She eyed the sandwich as if it might explode, then took a tentative bite. For a moment, she chewed thoughtfully. Then, her entire body began to levitate. Whoa! Okay, that's new, Elliot yelped, dropping the jar of peanut butter. Kanara floated a solid 2 feet above the couch, her silver eyes wide with alarm. Her wrist device emitted a series of rapid beeps. Warning: unexpected reaction to legume-based protein. Situation: uncontained buoyancy. Elliot blinked. Uncontained what now? I am ascending, Kanara said, her voice laced with both confusion and mild annoyance. Well, at least you're not choking, Elliot muttered, rushing to her side. He grabbed her arm and tried to pull her back down, but she was surprisingly weightless. Okay. This is fine. This is totally fine. We'll figure this out. Kanara gave him a deadpan look, her silver hair drifting like she was underwater. Your reassurances lack conviction. Elliot rolled his eyes. Thanks for the vote of confidence, E.T. Eventually, the floating subsided, and Kanara sank back onto the couch with a soft thud. Elliot let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Well, scratch peanut butter off the list. You're officially allergic to sandwiches. Clarification: the reaction was not allergic. The molecular composition of the legume protein temporarily disrupted my gravitic equilibrium, the wrist device explained. Great, Elliot said, throwing his hands up. So, not only do you not know what you can eat, but what you can eat might turn you into a helium balloon. This just keeps getting better. Kanara tilted her head, studying him. Your frustration is detectable, yet your humor persists. This is a peculiar trait. It's called coping, Elliot replied with a lopsided grin. You should try it. Now let's move on before you accidentally phase through the ceiling or something. The next experiment involved fruit. Elliot piled an assortment of apples, bananas, and oranges onto the coffee table, feeling a strange mix of determination and dread. Okay, these are fruits. They're healthy, full of vitamins, and generally non-lethal, unless you're allergic, or they're too ripe, or— Your preamble is unnecessary, Kanara interrupted, reaching for an apple. Right, okay, go ahead. She took a cautious bite. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, her skin flickered, shifting from its usual pale glow to a vibrant green. Oh, come on, Elliot groaned. Kanara looked down at her hands, now a shade of lime that would make any neon sign jealous. She frowned. Query, is this permanent? No idea, Elliot said, rubbing the back of his neck. But hey, at least you're not floating this time. Progress? Kanara sighed, setting the apple down. Your planet's organic material is proving incompatible. Elliot flopped onto the armchair across from her. Tell me about it. I've got no idea what to try next. Burgers, tacos, ice cream? Actually, scratch that. If ice cream makes you grow a third arm or something, I'm not sure I can handle it. Kanara's lips quirked upward in a faint smile. Your creativity is appreciated. Yeah, well, I'm running out of ideas and snack options, Elliot said, gesturing to the dwindling pile of food. If this keeps up, we're going to have to start experimenting with dirt. Dirt, Kanara repeated, her tone flat. Kidding, mostly, Elliot said, grinning. By the time the sun began to rise, the kitchen was a disaster zone. Plates, wrappers, and half-eaten experiments were scattered across every surface. Kanara sat amidst the chaos, her glow dim but steady. Observation, your persistence is notable, the wrist device commented. Elliot leaned against the counter, exhausted, but somehow amused. Yeah, well, I'm not about to let you starve on my watch. Call it human stubbornness. Or human absurdity, Kanara added, her voice tinged with something almost like fondness. Elliot smirked. Same thing, really. For a moment they sat in companionable silence. Then Kanara spoke, her tone unusually soft. Your efforts, they are not unnoticed. Gratitude extended. Elliot looked at her, surprised. Hey, don't get all mushy on me now. We've still got a long way to go. And besides, he added with a grin, I'm not giving up until we find something you can eat without turning into a glow stick or defying gravity. Kanara's silver eyes met his, and for the first time she laughed, a sound like chimes caught in the wind. As the first rays of sunlight spilled through the window, Elliot couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, this whole alien houseguest thing wouldn't be so bad after all. Elliot stood outside the sleek glass doors of Biologic Labs, clutching a crumpled bag of kale in one hand and his phone in the other. He glanced nervously at the alien woman beside him. Kanara's glow was faint this morning, a dull shimmer barely noticeable in the harsh daylight. She looked exhausted, her usual sharp gaze clouded. This is a terrible idea, Elliot muttered, half to himself. Correction, this is your only idea, Kanara replied, the wrist device translating with its signature monotone accuracy. Elliot sighed. Fair, but I'm pretty sure Serena's going to murder me. The doors slid open with a soft whoosh, and they stepped into the sterile white interior of the lab. The air smelled faintly of bleach and burnt coffee. At the far end of the room, hunched over a cluttered workbench, was Dr. Serena Kim, biochemist extraordinaire, and Elliot's oldest and most long-suffering friend. Elliot, Serena said without looking up, her voice dripping with exasperation. If you're here to borrow money, the answer's no. Not money this time, Elliot replied, holding up his hands. But you might want to sit down for this. Serena finally looked up, her sharp eyes narrowing. She froze when she saw Kanara. For a moment, the room was utterly silent. Is that? Serena began, gesturing vaguely. An alien? Yeah, Elliot said, grinning nervously. Meet Kanara. She's, having some dietary issues. Serena blinked. Dietary issues. That's the short version, Elliot said. The longer version was interrupted by Kanara stepping forward, her glowing silver eyes locking onto Serena's. Query, your expertise in biochemical analysis. Request, assistance. Serena stared for a moment longer, then turned to Elliot. You owe me so much coffee for this." And the trio gathered around a lab table piled high with equipment. Serena busied herself with a scanner that looked suspiciously like a modified microwave, muttering under her breath as she connected wires and calibrated settings. "So," Serena began, glancing at Kinara, "you don't know what you can eat." "At all?" "Correct," the wrist device answered. "And you've tried?" Serena gestured toward Elliot, who shrugged. "Pretty much everything I had in the fridge," he said. "It's been a whole thing. Let's just say peanut butter is officially off the menu." "Also apples," Kinara added, her tone deadpan. Serena raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. "Okay, well, let's start with the basics. We'll analyze your physiology and see if we can figure out what you're compatible with." She handed Kinara a small metal device. "This is a biomolecular scanner. Just hold it." Before she could finish, the scanner lit up like a Christmas tree, emitting a series of rapid beeps. Serena's eyes widened as the results scrolled across her monitor. Elliot?" she said, her voice unusually high-pitched. "Yeah? Your friend here isn't just alien. She's, how do I put this, biologically next level. Her cells have adaptive properties I've never seen before." Kinara tilted her head. "Clarification. My species possesses advanced biomolecular engineering. Adaptation is essential for survival across variable planetary environments." "Right. Of course," Serena said, rubbing her temples. "Because why wouldn't you be a walking miracle of science?" "Hey," Elliot interjected. "Miracle or not, she's still starving. Can we focus on that part?" Serena sighed. "Fine. Let's try running some tests with Earth-based nutrients. Start with the kale." Elliot handed over the bag of kale, looking vaguely offended. "I knew kale would save the day." "Don't get cocky," Serena muttered. For the next few hours, the lab became a hub of chaotic experimentation. Serena fed Kinara carefully measured doses of various compounds, proteins, vitamins, minerals, while Elliot provided color commentary. "Okay, that's chlorophyll," Serena announced, handing Kinara a bright green liquid. "Great, so we're feeding her plant blood now," Elliot quipped. "Do you ever stop talking?" Serena shot back. "Not really." To everyone's relief, the chlorophyll seemed to have a positive effect. Kinara's glow brightened slightly, and her energy levels visibly improved. "Progress," Serena declared, jotting down notes. "See? I told you kale was the answer," Elliot said with a triumphant grin. "Technically, it's the chlorophyll in the kale," Serena corrected. "Details," Elliot replied, waving a hand dismissively. Kinara, meanwhile, sipped the remaining chlorophyll mixture with surprising grace. "This substance is adequate." "High praise," Elliot said, smirking. By the end of the day, they had a working theory. Kinara's physiology could metabolize certain plant-based compounds, but only in their purest forms. Processed foods were a no-go, and anything animal-based was outright dangerous. "This is just the beginning," Serena warned as she packed up her equipment. "We'll need more tests, more samples, and probably more kale." "Music to my ears," Elliot said, grinning. Kinara inclined her head. "Your assistance is appreciated, both of you." Serena gave a small, tired smile. "Don't mention it. Just maybe don't tell the government about this, okay?" Elliot chuckled. "What, you don't want to be the poster child for interstellar diplomacy?" "Not unless it comes with a raise," Serena replied. As they left the lab, Kinara glanced at Elliot. "Your companions exhibit commendable traits: humor, intelligence, persistence." Elliot grinned. "Yeah, Serena's great. You should see her karaoke skills." Kinara tilted her head, clearly intrigued. "Define karaoke." Elliot laughed. "Oh, you're in for a treat." For the first time in days, things seemed to be looking up. But as they walked into the cool night air, none of them noticed the faint flicker of lights on the horizon, growing steadily brighter. Something was coming. The night hummed with a quiet unease as Elliot's ancient hatchback rattled its way back toward his apartment. The glow of the dashboard flickered in time with the bumpy road, and Kinara sat beside him, her silver eyes scanning the passing trees. She clutched a small thermos of chlorophyll tea, Serena's parting gift, sipping it with a mix of curiosity and necessity. "So," Elliot said, breaking the silence, "now that we've figured out what you can eat without defying gravity or turning into a rave light, what's next on the alien to-do list? World domination? Building a spaceship out of IKEA parts?" Kinara tilted her head, the faintest hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Query: your tendency toward humor in uncertain situations. Is this a universal human trait?" "Pretty much," Elliot replied, grinning. "It's either laugh or cry, and crying's not great for my brand." "Brand?" "Yeah, you know, the whole charming, lovable goofball thing I've got going on." Kinara's wrist device chimed. "Statement: this is an inaccurate self-assessment." Elliot blinked. "Wow, your translator's got a real gift for roasting people." Kinara's lips twitched into a proper smile this time, a brief flash of amusement, before her gaze shifted back to the horizon. It was then that Elliot noticed the lights. At first, he thought it was just an airplane, maybe a low-flying drone, but the patterns were wrong. The lights moved in synchronized loops, weaving through the night sky like dancers in a cosmic ballet. They weren't the soft, flickering orange of distant planes or the steady white of satellites. These were sharp, pulsating blues and greens, swirling in mesmerizing patterns. Kinara?" Elliot said, his voice tightening. She looked up, her silver eyes narrowing. "Observation. Those are not terrestrial vehicles." "Great," Elliot muttered, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "So, friends of yours?" Kinara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned forward, her glow intensifying slightly as she stared at the lights. Clarification. Their signal is unfamiliar. Origin, unknown. "Cool. Unknown alien ships. That's not terrifying at all," Elliot said, his voice laced with nervous sarcasm. The light suddenly shifted direction, arcing downward toward the road ahead. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the car like a subwoofer cranked to maximum volume. Elliot slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt just as the lights descended in front of them. Dust and debris swirled in the headlights as a sleek metallic craft hovered inches above the ground. It was smaller than Elliot expected, about the size of a bus, but its surface was smooth and seamless as if it had been carved from a single piece of metal. "Well," Elliot said, swallowing hard, "that's definitely not a drone." Before either of them could react, a hatch on the side of the craft hissed open, releasing a cloud of pale mist. From within emerged 3 figures, their silhouettes stark against the glowing interior. They were humanoid, but taller, their proportions slightly exaggerated. Their skin shimmered like liquid mercury, and their eyes glowed faintly blue. Kinara stiffened. Designation: Seekers. "Seekers?" Elliot asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They are collectors," Kinara said, her tone unusually tense. "They search for anomalies, for those who stray." "Stray? Like you?" Kinara didn't answer, but the way she squared her shoulders said enough. The lead seeker stepped forward, its movements unnervingly smooth. It raised a hand and a faint melodic hum filled the air, almost hypnotic in its rhythm. Kinara's glow dimmed, and she stumbled slightly, clutching her head. "Whoa! Hey! What's going on?" Elliot shouted, instinctively stepping in front of her. The seeker tilted its head as if noticing him for the first time. It spoke, its voice a haunting blend of tones that the wrist device struggled to translate. "Human, this does not concern you." "Yeah, well, you're on my planet, so I think it kinda does," Elliot shot back, his bravado fueled more by panic than confidence. The seeker didn't respond. Instead, it raised its hand again, and a shimmering field of light began to form around Kinara. "Elliot," she said, her voice strained, "they are attempting to transport me. My presence here is considered unauthorized. Well, that's just rude, Elliot said, scanning the car for anything remotely useful. His eyes landed on the thermos of chlorophyll tea. Without thinking, he grabbed it and flung the contents at the seeker. The reaction was immediate. The green liquid splashed across the seeker's chest, and the creature let out a distorted cry, its shimmering form flickering like a glitching hologram. The light field around Kinara dissipated, and she gasped, her glow brightening. Elliot blinked. Holy crap. Did I just win an alien fight with kale juice? Clarification. Their composition is reactive to chlorophyll compounds, Kinara said, her voice regaining strength. Great. So we're fighting aliens with smoothies now. Fantastic, Elliot said, grabbing the bag of kale from the back seat. The other two seekers advanced, their glowing eyes narrowing. Kinara stepped forward, her own glow intensifying. Elliot, you must leave. This is not your battle. Yeah, hard pass, Elliot said, holding up the bag of kale like it was a weapon. I didn't come this far to let some glow-in-the-dark jerks kidnap my new alien friend. Let's do this. For a moment, Kinara looked at him, something unreadable flickering in her silver eyes. Then she nodded. Statement, your bravery is unexpected. Elliot smirked. Yeah, well, I'm full of surprises. As the seekers lunged forward, the night erupted into chaos. A whirlwind of glowing lights, shimmering figures, and, inexplicably, flying kale leaves. The hatchback roared. Well, more accurately, wheezed. Back onto the road, its tires kicking up gravel as Elliot floored the gas pedal. In the rearview mirror, the seeker's craft shimmered ominously, glowing brighter as it began to give chase. I hope this thing can outrun an alien spaceship, Elliot muttered, white-knuckling the wheel. Kinara, seated beside him with a calmness Elliot found downright infuriating, glanced back at the pursuing craft. Clarification. Your vehicle lacks the necessary propulsion to escape. Their velocity is superior by several magnitudes. Fantastic. Love the vote of confidence, Elliot shot back. Kinara reached into the bag of kale on the floor, pulling out a handful of the leafy greens. Do you possess additional quantities of chlorophyll compounds? Not unless we swing by the farmer's market, Elliot replied. Why? Adaptation. I will create a diversion. Elliot glanced at her, alarmed. Wait, what? No, that's a terrible idea. You're the reason they're chasing us in the first place. Precisely, Kinara said. Their focus is on me. If I depart, you will be safe. That's not the point, Elliot shouted, swerving to avoid a pothole. We're a team now, remember? You don't just ditch your team. Kinara hesitated, her silver eyes studying him. Observation. Humans exhibit a perplexing resistance to logic. Yeah, well, we're weird like that, Elliot said. The glowing craft behind them surged closer, its hum growing louder like the ominous crescendo of a sci-fi horror soundtrack. Elliot grimaced. Okay, new plan. We don't die. Thoughts? Kinara tilted her head thoughtfully. Suggestion. Activate their containment mechanism prematurely. Elliot blinked. Their what now? Kinara explained quickly, pointing to the shimmering energy fields that had briefly surrounded her earlier. Their transport technology requires precise calibration. If disrupted mid-deployment, the resulting feedback loop could destabilize their systems. Great. And how do we disrupt it? She held up the kale. Elliot stared at her. You want me to throw more salad at them? Affirmative. This is officially the weirdest day of my life, Elliot muttered, grabbing the bag. The craft closed in, its sleek surface gleaming under the moonlight. The lead seeker emerged from the craft again, its glowing eyes fixed on Kinara. The hum intensified, and a faint shimmer of energy began to form around the car. Now, Elliot, Kinara shouted. Elliot rolled down the window, and with all the finesse of a Little League pitcher, flung a fistful of kale at the shimmering light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the kale leaves ignited in a burst of green light as they hit the energy field. The hum wavered, sputtered, and then, boom! The containment field collapsed with a crackling explosion of light, sending the Seeker's craft veering wildly to the side. Sparks flew from its hull as it spiraled out of control, crashing into a nearby field with a satisfying thud. Elliot let out a whoop of victory. "Take that, you shiny jerks." Chinara glanced at him, her expression a mix of amusement and approval. Statement: "Your improvisational tactics were effective." "Yeah, well, never underestimate the power of kale," Elliot said, grinning. The victory was short-lived. As the dust settled, the downed craft began to emit a pulsing red light. "That doesn't look good," Elliot said, slowing the car to a stop. "Assessment: the signal is a distress beacon," Chinara said. "Reinforcements will arrive shortly." Elliot groaned. "Of course they will. Why wouldn't they? This is why I hate space movies." Chinara opened the door and stepped out, her gaze fixed on the fallen craft. "We must act quickly. Their technology cannot be allowed to remain intact." Elliot followed, reluctantly. "You mean we have to go back there? To the giant glowing spaceship we just barely escaped from?" "Affirmative." "Awesome. Love that journey for us," Elliot muttered. As they approached the wreckage, Chinara's glow brightened, illuminating the field around them. The craft was partially buried in the dirt, its sleek surface marred by cracks and scorch marks. The red beacon pulsed rhythmically, casting eerie shadows across the landscape. Chinara placed a hand on the hull, her fingers glowing faintly as she interfaced with the ship's systems. "Their core processor remains operational. I will disable it." "Cool, you do that," Elliot said, glancing nervously at the sky. I'll keep watch." A faint hum filled the air as Chinara worked, her glow intensifying. Elliot paced nearby, his mind racing. He didn't know what reinforcements would look like, but he was pretty sure he didn't want to find out. "Elliot," Chinara said suddenly. "Assistance required." He hurried over. "What's up?" She gestured to a panel on the side of the craft. "The access port is sealed. Apply force here." "Right. Sure. Let me just channel my inner Hulk," Elliot said, grabbing a nearby rock. With a grunt, he slammed the rock against the panel. It took several tries, but eventually, the metal buckled, revealing a tangle of glowing wires. "Good work," Chinara said, reaching into the opening. "Thanks," Elliot said, rubbing his sore hands. "I'll be expecting my medal any day now." Chinara didn't reply, too focused on the task at hand. Sparks flew as she manipulated the wires, and the red beacon began to flicker. "Almost there," she murmured. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic screech pierced the air. Elliot whipped around to see one of the Seekers emerging from the wreckage, its glowing eyes locked onto them. "Oh, come on!" Elliot shouted, grabbing the rock again. Before he could throw it, Chinara stepped forward, her glow intensifying to a blinding brightness. The Seeker hesitated, its form flickering, as if unsure of its next move. "Go!" Chinara commanded, her voice ringing with authority. Elliot didn't need to be told twice. He darted back to the car, starting the engine just as Chinara joined him. The Seeker lunged, but it was too late. The car roared back onto the road, leaving the wreckage and its pulsing beacon behind. As they sped away, the sky began to brighten with the faint glow of approaching ships. "Reinforcements," Chinara said, her voice calm despite the situation. "Great. Any other brilliant ideas?" Elliot asked. She glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. "We adapt. It is what we do." Elliot sighed. "Yeah, well, let's hope they don't adapt to kale anytime soon." Despite the danger, he couldn't help but laugh. After all, it wasn't every day you fought off alien invaders with a bag of vegetables. The road stretched before them, dark and winding, as the faint hum of the approaching ships grew louder. Elliot tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his mind racing. Behind them, the faint red glow of the crashed craft's beacon still pulsed ominously, a beacon for reinforcements. "So, just to recap," Elliot said, his voice strained. "We've got a busted car, a bag of kale that's somehow the MVP of this entire mess, and a fleet of shiny alien bounty hunters closing in on us. Did I miss anything? Correction. The vehicle remains operational, albeit suboptimal, Kanara replied, her silver eyes scanning the rearview mirror. Elliot groaned. Oh, good. Suboptimal. That makes me feel so much better. Chinara tilted her head thoughtfully. Clarification. Your sarcasm appears to increase in direct proportion to perceived danger. Yeah, it's my superpower. Too bad it doesn't deflect laser beams. The sky behind them lit up as the first of the reinforcements descended. These ships were smaller than the original craft, but no less menacing. Their sleek forms gleamed under the moonlight, and their engines emitted a low, bone-rattling hum. Kinara straightened in her seat. Observation. These are recon drones. Their purpose is to disable and capture. Great. Just what we needed, Elliot muttered. Any chance they're allergic to kale, too? Unlikely, Chinara said, her tone frustratingly calm. Elliot sighed. Of course. Why would we get lucky twice? The first drone swooped low, its sharp, angular body illuminated by blue tracer lights. It emitted a high-pitched whine, and a beam of light shot out, striking the road ahead. The asphalt melted instantly, leaving a molten crater in their path. Okay, that's not fair, Elliot shouted, swerving to avoid the glowing pit. Kinara leaned out the window, her wrist device glowing as she scanned the drone. Analysis. Their energy signatures are vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. A focused pulse could disrupt their systems temporarily. And how do we do that without, a high-tech alien EMP device? Chinara reached into her bag of gadgets and pulled out what looked like a metallic orb. This should suffice. However, it must be deployed manually. Manually? Elliot repeated, his voice rising. As in, someone has to throw it? Affirmative. Great. Love that journey for me, Elliot muttered. The drone swooped low again, its lights flickering menacingly. Kinara handed Elliot the orb, her expression calm. Aim for its propulsion module. The disruption will cause it to lose altitude. Yeah, sure. Let me just channel my inner quarterback, Elliot said, rolling down the window. As the drone approached, Elliot leaned out, gripping the orb tightly. The wind whipped at his face, and for a split second he considered how ridiculous this all was. He was a guy who spent his days fixing computers and binge-watching sci-fi shows, not fighting off alien drones with kale and mystery gadgets. Elliot! Chinara's voice snapped him back to reality. He squinted, aimed, and threw the orb with all his might. The orb sailed through the air, its surface glowing faintly. For a moment, it seemed like it would miss, but then crack! It struck the drone's underside. The effect was immediate. The drone's lights flickered wildly, and its smooth flight turned into a chaotic spiral. It crashed into the trees on the side of the road, disappearing in a burst of sparks. Elliot whooped, pumping his fist. Yes! Take that, you flying Roomba! Kinara allowed herself a small smile. Well done. Your aim is commendable. Thanks, Elliot said, grinning. I guess all those years of dodgeball trauma finally paid off. Their victory was short-lived. 2 more drones appeared on the horizon, their lights piercing through the darkness. Elliot groaned. Oh, come on, do these things have a group discount or something? Suggestion. We must leave the vehicle and proceed on foot, Chinara said, already unbuckling her seatbelt. On foot? Against flying death machines? That doesn't sound like a great plan, Elliot said. It is the only plan, Chinara replied, her tone firm. Elliot sighed. Fine, but if we die, I'm haunting you. They abandoned the car and darted into the forest, the cool night air thick with the hum of approaching drones. The trees provided some cover, their dense branches obscuring the view from above. Elliot panted as they ran, his legs protesting with every step. He said between breaths, this would be a great time for one of those cool alien gadgets, like a teleportation device or a lightsaber. Chinara glanced at him. I will keep that in mind for future contingencies. Thanks. Super helpful, Elliot said, ducking under a low-hanging branch. The drone's hum grew louder, and beams of light cut through the trees, searching. Kinara paused, her wrist device glowing as she accessed a holographic map. "There is a structure nearby," she said. "A human communication facility. Its equipment may be useful." "A communication facility? You mean like a cell tower?" "Affirmative." Elliot blinked. "Wait, you can hack a cell tower? That's actually pretty cool." Kinara didn't reply, already moving toward the facility. The tower loomed ahead, its blinking red lights visible through the trees. A small utility shed sat at its base, surrounded by a chain-link fence. "Okay, so how do we get in?" Elliot asked. Kinara didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand, and the lock on the gate clicked open with a faint hum. Elliot stared at her. "You could have mentioned you had alien lockpicking skills earlier." "There was no need until now," she replied simply. "Right, of course. Why make my life easier?" Inside the shed, Kinara quickly interfaced with the tower's systems, her glow illuminating the cramped space. "What are you doing?" Elliot asked, watching as alien symbols scrolled across her wrist device. "Repurposing the tower's signal to generate an electromagnetic pulse," she said. "It will disable the drones temporarily." "Temporarily?" "It is all we require," she replied. The hum of the drones grew louder, and Elliot peeked out the window to see the beams of light closing in. Kinara? Not to rush you, but now would be a really great time for that EMP." "Almost there," she said, her fingers moving rapidly over the holographic interface. The drone's lights swept across the shed, illuminating it like a spotlight. "Kinara!" Elliot shouted. "Done," she said, pressing a final command. The air crackled with energy, and a wave of blue light burst from the tower, washing over the forest. The drones froze mid-air, their lights flickering before they plummeted to the ground with satisfying crashes. Elliot let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We did it. We actually did it." Kinara nodded, her glow dimming slightly as she stepped back from the console. "Temporary success. Their reinforcements will adapt." "Of course they will," Elliot said, "because nothing can ever be easy." Despite his sarcasm, he couldn't help but smile. Against all odds, they'd survived another round. For now, at least, the galaxy's deadliest game of tag was on pause. The silence in the aftermath of the electromagnetic pulse was both eerie and welcome. For the first time in hours, the forest was devoid of the hum of alien drones or the screech of seekers. The only sound was Elliot's labored breathing as he leaned against the utility shed, staring at the smoking wreckage of the disabled drones scattered around the clearing. "Well," he said, wiping his forehead, "that was something. Can we file this under problem solved and go home now?" Kinara emerged from the shed, her glow dim but steady. She glanced at the fallen drones and then at the blinking lights of the tower overhead. "Negative. Reinforcements remain en route." Elliot groaned, sliding down to sit on the ground. "Of course they do, because nothing in life is simple." "Clarification. Life on Earth appears uniquely complicated," Kinara said, settling beside him. Elliot snorted. "Yeah, well, we've got a talent for turning even the easiest stuff into a mess. It's what we do best." She tilted her head, studying him with her silvery eyes. "Observation. Despite your proclivity for chaos, you exhibit remarkable resilience." "I'm going to take that as a compliment," Elliot said with a wry smile. The faint hum of approaching ships began to rise again, distant but unmistakable. Kinara's expression grew serious. "They will arrive within minutes," she said. "We must prepare." Elliot groaned as he stood, brushing dirt off his jeans. "Prepare? For what? We're out of EMPs, I've got no more kale, and my throwing arm is officially retired." "Then we must adapt," Kinara said simply. Elliot stared at her. You've really got to stop saying that. It makes it sound like we have a plan, and we really don't. As the hum grew louder, Kinara turned her gaze to the tower. Her glow brightened slightly, and Elliot recognized the expression on her face, the one she always got when she was about to suggest something equal parts brilliant and insane. "What?" he asked warily. "The tower's transmitter can generate a concentrated signal," she said, "a signal that can reach beyond Earth's atmosphere." Elliot frowned. "Okay, but how does that help us? Are we calling for help? Like intergalactic 911? "Correct," she said. "The Alliance has monitoring stations within this sector. If they receive my signal, they will intervene." Elliot blinked. "Wait, hold on. You had space backup this whole time, and you're only just now telling me?" "The risk of detection outweighed the potential benefit," Kinara said. Elliot threw up his hands. "Unbelievable. You aliens and your secret plans." The two of them worked quickly, Kinara modifying the tower's transmitter while Elliot fetched spare parts from the shed. The hum of the approaching ships grew louder, and the first faint lights appeared on the horizon. "No pressure or anything," Elliot said, handing Kinara a length of cable, "but they're almost here." "Understood," Kinara said, her tone calm as ever. Elliot couldn't help but marvel at her composure. For someone being hunted by her own kind, she seemed remarkably unshaken. "Hey," he said after a moment, "how are you not freaking out right now?" She paused, glancing at him. "Clarification. I am not without fear. However, fear does not preclude action." Elliot considered this, nodding slowly. "Huh, that's surprisingly profound." "Gratitude," she said, her lips twitching in the faintest hint of a smile. As the ships closed in, Kinara completed the final adjustments. She stepped back, her glow intensifying as she activated the transmitter. A beam of brilliant white light shot into the sky, cutting through the darkness like a beacon. Elliot shielded his eyes. "Okay, now what? Do we just hope the Alliance shows up before we get vaporized?" "Affirmative," Kinara said. "Great. Love this plan," Elliot muttered. The first of the reinforcements descended, a massive craft that dwarfed the earlier drones. Its sleek black surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and its engines emitted a deep, resonant hum. Elliot tensed, gripping the nearest heavy object he could find, a wrench. The ship hovered overhead, and for a moment, Elliot thought all was lost. But then, the hum of its engines faltered. A second craft appeared, its design sleeker and more elegant, glowing with blue light. Kinara's expression brightened. "It is the Alliance." Elliot exhaled, his shoulders sagging with relief. "Oh, thank God. I was not ready to go down swinging a wrench." The Alliance ship emitted a beam of light scanning the area. The reinforcements' craft hesitated, then retreated, their engines glowing faintly as they disappeared into the night sky. Elliot let out a whoop, throwing his wrench into the air. "We did it! They're leaving!" Kinara's glow softened as she turned to him. "You were instrumental in this success, Elliot." "Yeah, well, it's not every day I get to save the world with kale in a tower," he said, grinning. As the Alliance ship landed, a group of humanoid figures emerged, their uniforms gleaming under the ship's light. One of them approached Kinara, bowing slightly. "Citizen Kinara," the figure said, their voice melodic. "You have done well. The Seekers will be dealt with, and Earth is secure." Kinara nodded. "Gratitude, Officer Lyran. However, I could not have succeeded without my companion." She gestured to Elliot. Elliot blinked. "Wait, me? Oh no, I just threw kale and made bad jokes." "Observation. Your contributions were vital," Kinara said. Elliot scratched the back of his neck, grinning sheepishly. "Well, when you put it like that." As the Alliance began their cleanup, Kinara turned to Elliot. "The time has come for me to depart." Elliot's smile faltered. You're leaving? She nodded. My mission is complete. However, I will remember this world, and your assistance. Elliot swallowed hard, trying to hide his disappointment. Well, don't be a stranger. If you're ever in the neighborhood, feel free to drop by. Chinara's lips curved into a faint smile. I will consider it. As the Alliance ship prepared to depart, Elliot watched from the edge of the clearing. The last thing he saw was Chinara's glow, a silver light that lingered in his mind long after the ship vanished into the night sky. For a moment, he stood in silence, the events of the past few days washing over him. Then, with a deep breath, he turned and began the long walk back to his car. Despite everything, he couldn't help but smile. He'd faced alien bounty hunters, fought off drones, and saved the day with a bag of kale. And in the process, he'd made a friend he'd never forget. Maybe, just maybe, life on Earth wasn't so bad after all.